Hi there, welcome to a business communications video on the 5 principles for quality professional communication and some basics of analysis for how to think about your document before you get started. And I wanted to set the timer because I wanted to keep this a relatively short video. Also, there's another video that I've been using for a long time. That was my first ever instructional video that I made in a classroom. So I'm trying to update that. Not that you really need to know that, but often I address some of these initial business communications videos a little bit more professionally, but we're at home in the quarantining, and I thought, let you see one of my favorite shirts in my collection. So thank you for tuning in. I hope you'll find this useful. So let's get into the content here. So the first thing that I want to share with you are the 5 principles for quality professional communication. And these are pretty much right out of Locker, the Kitty Locker textbook that we use in this course. And the first 3 are 3 C's of the principles of communication. And then there's 2 more that that's not working. That we'll get to. So the 3 C's are as follows: clear, and see, now I'm getting all fancy by just popping in these words, complete, and drum roll please, correct. Clear, complete, and correct. So often people think that clear and correct are the same things, but often you can write in a very clear manner that is not necessarily absolutely correct. Might have a little error here and there, and sometimes errors that people don't even notice because they're so common in our language, or they're not identifiable to the reader as an error. Whereas correct can interfere with clear, because if you use incorrect language or you construct sentences in some way that's incorrect, you can lead readers down a path of thinking that is incorrect. So they kind of go hand in hand, but they are different. And one of the things to keep in mind when trying to write clear messages is to write messages that use language that is very accessible to the audience, and is free generally of jargon, unless you're writing specifically to an audience that's going to understand all that jargon, or it's in a big, say, report which you define the jargon, right? So if you're writing to a general audience, you want to avoid jargon. You want to avoid vocabulary words that are difficult to understand and would prompt someone to grab a dictionary. Make it clear and accessible language that pretty much anyone can understand. It also has to be correct, in which it can't have errors, particularly professional quality communication. If you're trying to show yourself off as a professional, then you're not going to have a message full of errors. For instance, recently, we live in a community with a homeowners association known as an HOA, and they sent us a message, as they sent to many people, because we weren't, in their minds, caring for our lawn adequately. We had some yellow, some in the grass, because this is in the summer and it's been pretty hot out here, and we had a few weeds that we hadn't gotten to since the last time we were out there weeding, right? So we were put on notice that if these conditions persisted, that they would fine us, right? But the message was full of errors, and it was I actually offered them my services as a business communication instructor to like write their messages for them, because how are we going to take them seriously if they can't write in a quality and professional manner? And of course, they have us over a barrel, so they just be like, whatever. We do whatever we want. You signed the agreement when you moved in, and you can move out of the neighborhood if you'd like, but we have the control here. It's a little different in the business world. It's going to make you look bad if you write incorrectly in a business, you're with your colleagues or you're in the executives. But definitely if you write an external communication that's full of errors, that's going to make you look bad. Certainly when you're trying to break in and get hired somewhere, you want to write communication that is absolutely correct. But like with clear, and as I was explaining, there are often errors that people don't realize are errors, and so sometimes to say avoid ending a sentence in a preposition, which has become sort of a debate as to whether that is an error or not. You'd have to write a sentence that's kind of stilted and formal and to most people's ears sounds incorrect, because most people don't really know grammar rules, super strongly. They just go by what sounds right, and so what sounds right is what's commonly being spoken in their world, which is often incorrect language. For instance, there's an actual difference between the words fewer and the words less, but often people just use less for everything and never use fewer, and so often they're making errors in the use of the word less, but people just think that sounds right because that's what they're used to hearing. So we want the message to be clear. We don't want to write down to people, but we want to write in a way that people don't have to look up words like eschew or ameliorate. We want it to be correct, which means, conforming to some conventions of general language, which might mean ending sentences in prepositions because people are just used to that. And to avoid that might make the language sound artificial and stilted. And then, of course, your message needs to be complete. You need to think about all the things that need to be in your message for the reader. And this goes actually hand in hand with the very next one of these 5 principles, which is saves the reader's time. Now, I want to come back to that one because I want to next talk about this next one, and I want to make the connection between complete and saves the reader's time. The 5th of these principles is builds goodwill. That all the messages that you write in the business world, when you're writing quality professional communications in the business world, need to build goodwill. Certainly, you want to build goodwill with customers, even and especially when you're giving customers bad news. So we're going to practice that. We have a whole unit, week 3 on bad news messages. And as far as I'm concerned, we should do 2 weeks on it. But it's a 8-week course, so can't really do that. But we want to build goodwill with all of our external communications for sure. Certainly, we want goodwill when we're applying for a job. But even our internal communications, we want to build goodwill because we want to forge those good relationships with our language. So we want to really think about our language and how it sounds and how it's being received by readers. And so we're going to practice techniques to make our language more positive emphasis, to make our language more reader-centered, called you attitude, and other kinds of techniques to lighten our style and promote goodwill in our messages. One of the ways that we can promote goodwill in our messages is not wasting readers' time. Now, I'm in education, so a lot of my messages to you are going to purposely break that rule because I have certain reasons for doing that, and as an educator, my communications are not really constrained by business communication principles. My communications in this course are not about business. I'm not in the business world, technically. So, but in the business world, we want to save the reader's time. Now, certainly when we're writing to superiors or we're writing to executives, we want to save their time because they don't have a lot of time to give to us, which is why you create an executive summary at the beginning of a long report, because often the executives just read the executive summary. That's why it's called that. When we're writing internally, people, don't want to spend a lot of time on messages from coworkers, right? This, if you work anywhere that has email, that there is a major problem with too many emails, and often emails that are being sent to you that you don't even need to see. So this is one of the things that we'll focus on with a couple of our units is who is this message being sent to? Because sometimes, you get a message in your inbox that you don't even need to be seeing, that got sent to your entire company, rather than them making a group just for the people that it applies to. And then people start replying all to that message. And so now you got like 20 messages that are completely irrelevant to you. So there alone is the first gatekeeping position to not waste people's time. But then if it is a message that I need to see, what absolutely do I need to know? Is there an action that I need to take? That should be top of the message. What's the most essential information that I need to know? What's the bottom line? Can we put that in a position of emphasis, either at the beginning or set like in the middle with a ton of white space around it with arrows pointing to it or something, like how can we use design of the document to at the same time promote saving of the reader's time? So you always got to think about your reader. You got to think about what your reader's going to do with the message. You got to think about the purpose of the message, and think about the best way to communicate this message. And this is a good thing to practice when you message me in this class. What is it I need to know? I often get students writing, I'm confused about this assignment. I can't help you with that. Tell me what you're confused about. Tell me which assignment you're talking about, because sometimes we have several assignments going at the same time. Think about what the reader does with your message, and practice being clear, being complete, being correct, saving the reader's time, and building goodwill. When somebody sends me a message with no hi, Chris, and no signature that just says, I don't understand this assignment, that's not building goodwill. Okay, last thing, because I'm keeping this short and it went a little over the amount of time I spent on the last video, last time I made it, is part of saving the reader's time is giving your document a skim factor. That the first impression of any document, even email message or some kind of informational memo or resume, is the reader is going to skim it. The reader's gonna, if it's more than one page, flip through it. If it's one page, just skim it. I should be able to get the general impression of the document and what it's all about in 4 seconds or fewer. There's how you actually use those words, 4 seconds or fewer. And this has to do with design. Design the document with headers and section labels and different font qualities, boldface or colors or pictures or different compositions, so that when I skim it, I get and it's not crazy and jumbled, I get a quick impression of what this thing is and I understand it immediately. Even if there's chunks of text that I need to read, I can identify what those chunks of text are and dive into those passages and spend more time on them when I want to. All right, so this is the 5 principles of business communications. When you're getting ready to write a document, you should go through the process of analysis that's also described in the locker text in the first chapter. Who is your audience? To whom are you writing? What is the purpose of the document? What information does the document need to contain? And then some other things that you need to think about as you're creating the document. What's the style and the tone that you want to achieve with the document, which will be affected by the audience and the purpose and the information? And we're going to practice in this class. We really practice what Locker promotes, which is kind of a lighter, more upbeat, modern kind of tone, not the formal business ease that many of you might associate with business communications. So later in the semester, I'll spend some time on this sounding a little too formal, a little too stilted, a little too business ease. You know, we want to lighten that up. We want you attitude. We want positive emphasis. We want building goodwill. We want these things in our document. We also sometimes want to have direct benefits for readers. And sometimes we even use special techniques, like in the bad news messages, where we use a buffer. We won't start with the bad news. That would be dumb. You know, no people, I mean, sometimes people do, but normally we want to kind of buffer the reader from the bad news rather than just hitting it at the, you know, very first word, very first sentence. So there's some general principles. I have about 15 minutes, so this is good. Thanks so much for tuning in to this video. I hope you found that helpful. So good things to talk about. And if you want to talk about them more, let's discuss them in the classroom. Discussion boards are always open for additional content. As you'll notice, I have an emphasis for additional content. And so dig in there and you know, feel free to ask questions. Thanks. See you around the classroom. Bye-bye.